Magic Tea House, Book Number 52. A Merlin Mission. Soccer on Sunday, by Mary Pope Osborne. Chapter 9. Goal! So now we can just be our old selves again, said Roberto, panting. There were no signs of the soccer kids. As Jack looked around, he saw a newspaper stand in an outdoor cafe. "Hey, are you guys as hungry and thirsty as I am?" he asked. "Yes," Annie and Roberto said together. Jack pulled some pesos out of his backpack. "How are we doing here?" he said. He showed his money to Roberto. "Do we have enough for tacos and bus fare too?" Roberto nodded, grinning. "Perfect," said Jack. "Let's grab a bite. Then Annie and I have to find a big banquet in the city." "Really? Do you not need to wash up first?" asked Roberto. "Oh, yeah." Jack sighed as he looked at his mud-splattered clothes. "Let's worry about that after we eat," said Annie. The three of them stood up and headed inside the cafe. A heavy-set woman with brown skin and gray hair was frying food behind the counter. A couple of teenagers were putting coins in a jukebox. Loud music started to play. "3 taco plates and 3 lemonades, please," Roberto said to the woman behind the counter. She nodded and put food onto 3 plates. Then she brought the plates to a table and set them down. Soon she delivered 3 tall glasses of pink lemonade. Jack, Annie, and Roberto dug hungrily into their food. Jack gobbled up tacos filled with tomatoes, chilies, and cheese. He ate a big serving of black beans and yellow rice and gulped down his lemonade. "Roberto, you scored lots of goals today," Annie said, her mouth full. "Yeah, your feet moved like lightning," said Jack. Roberto laughed. "You two made me look good," he said. "You passed the ball to me every chance you got." "That's called teamwork," said Annie. "Yes, it is," said Jack. "Someone called us the beautiful team." "Right," said Annie. She raised her arms above her head. "Yay, beautiful team!" she exclaimed. Roberto laughed. "You have a good enthusiasm for soccer, Jack and Annie," he said. "Enthusiasm is everything." Jack smiled. "Right, and now I have enthusiasm for eating this food," he said. "Me too. It's so good," said Annie, taking another bite of rice and beans. "Hey, Jack, where did you get that ring?" asked Roberto. "It looks like it's on fire." "What?" said Jack and Annie together. They both looked at the ring on Jack's finger. It was flickering with light. "Oh, man," whispered Jack. Annie's eyes grew huge. "What were we just talking about?" she asked. Good food," said Jack. "Jack's bicycle kick," said Roberto. "The beautiful team," said Annie. "Enthusiasm," said Roberto. "I said enthusiasm is everything." Suddenly the ring exploded with light. "That's it!" cried Jack. "Enthusiasm is everything," said Annie. "Roberto, I think you just said something amazing and true and great," said Jack. "But it wasn't me who first said it," said Roberto. "Pele said it." "Pele said that?" said Jack. "Yes, My father read it in the newspaper, said Roberto. Pele said when you play soccer, enthusiasm is everything. Okay, that's it. We just accomplished our mission, said Annie. We can go to Camelot now, said Jack. They both shot their arms in the air and shouted, Goal! What mission? Where's Camelot? Asked Roberto. He looked confused. It's a long story, said Jack. Just know that you helped us discover a really important secret of greatness from Pele, said Annie. Thank you. Roberto smiled. You're welcome, he said. But then the smile left his face. I am happy, but I am sad too, he said. Why are you sad? Asked Annie. Today was a magical day, said Roberto, but it will never happen again. I will never be a great soccer player again. Yes, you can be a great soccer player again, Annie said. You have lots of enthusiasm. That's all I have, said Roberto. I'm clumsy. I don't run fast or kick well. Before today, I never scored even one goal. Roberto, this is really important, said Annie. If you want to be a great soccer player or great at anything, Jack broke in. Right. If you want to be great at anything, there are 4 secrets you need to know, said Annie. Right, said Jack. First, you need to have humility. That means you have to be willing to learn from others. Roberto has that, said Annie. Absolutely you have that, Jack said to Roberto. Second, being great takes hard work. Do you work hard at practicing soccer? Annie asked Roberto. Well, no, said Roberto. I don't either, said Jack. Okay, so we should both start practicing more. Third, you need to have meaning and purpose in your life, said Annie. Roberto frowned. What does that mean? He said. That means you try to do something that's good for the world and not just yourself, said Annie. Oh, said Roberto. Well, soccer does that. It brings people together from different neighborhoods. And today, it brought people together from all over the world in the stadium. And it brought the 3 of us together, said Annie. Good, said Jack. And finally, enthusiasm. And enthusiasm is something we know you have. Yes, said Roberto. Smiling again, he settled back in his seat. So I know the thing I must do. I must start to practice very hard. My brothers and sisters will help me with that. Oh no. He jumped up from his chair. What's wrong? Said Annie. I must go now, Roberto said. I forgot all about my family. Everyone will be waiting to hear my stories about the game. Oh, right. We have to go too, said Jack, standing up with Annie. Jack looked at their bill and left a bunch of pesos on the table. Then they all headed out of the cafe. The rain had let up, and there was a steamy mist in the air. Where is the banquet you must find? Said Roberto. Oh, we don't have to go there anymore, said Jack. Our mission is done. We just need to get back to the U.S. Embassy. No problem, said Roberto. The bus goes to the Insurgentes station very near the embassy. We can all get off there, and I'll catch the metro to my neighborhood. Come on. He led Jack and Annie across a vacant lot. Then they started up a dirt road lined with small stucco houses. There it is. Run, Roberto said. An old bus was rattling up the road. Jack and Annie ran with Roberto to the corner. Out of breath, they got to the bus stop just in time. The doors of the bus opened, and the three of them hopped aboard. Metro Insurgentes, please, Jack said to the driver. He paid for 3 fares. Then, even though there were plenty of seats, Jack, Annie, and Roberto squeezed into a 2-seater so they could all sit together. As the bus wound through the outskirts of Mexico City, Jack leaned his head against the window. Soon he closed his eyes. The next thing he knew, he was back in the game, kicking the ball forward, backward, and sideways, jumping into the air, lobbing the ball past defenders, past the goalie, and into the net. Jack held the trophy high above his head while the crowd roared. "Wake up, kids, we're here," announced the bus driver. Jack opened his eyes. The bus driver was standing over them. They'd all fallen asleep on the long ride back to the city. Annie gently shook Roberto's shoulder, waking him. He sat up straight. "It's our stop, Roberto," she said. Oh, he said. Jack, Annie, and Roberto scrambled out of their seats. They jumped off the bus and stood together on the plaza of Metro Insurgentes. "Do you know how to get to the embassy from here?" Roberto asked. "Sure, we've been there already," said Annie. "Good," said Roberto. He shook hands with Annie, then Jack. "Thank you, Annie and Jack," he said formally. "Thank you for everything." "Thank you for everything, Roberto," said Jack. "Happy birthday forever," said Annie. Roberto flashed his beautiful smile. He waved, and then he turned and hurried into the metro station. "What a great kid," said Jack. "Yeah, I wish he lived in Frog Creek," said Annie. "Me too," said Jack. "Well, ready?" "Yep," said Annie. Onward to Camelot. It was dark as Jack and Annie headed up Florencia Avenue. They passed the Angel and then ran down the street to the U.S. Embassy. The embassy grounds were quiet. There was no sign of a guard on duty. "I hope Benny got to see the game on TV," said Annie. "I would like to see that game someday," said Jack. "I'll bet there's a way to see it back home, on the computer, or on a DVD. "Hey, you really couldn't see anything from Roberto's seat, could you?" said Annie. Jack shook his head. "You're a good person, Jack," said Annie. Before Jack could say he wasn't that good, Benny stepped out of the embassy. "Hi, y'all. Are you just getting back from the game?" he asked. "Yep," said Jack. "Did y'all have a good time?" asked Benny. "Yes," said Annie. "And you know what?" said Jack, thinking about running around the soccer field with Annie and Roberto. "It was the game of a lifetime." "It sure was. I got to see some of it on TV," said Benny. "I'm headed home now. Night." "Good night," said Annie. She and Jack stood on the lawn of the embassy until Benny had disappeared down the city sidewalk. "Pronto," said Annie. Jack and Annie hurried to the rope ladder hidden in the trees. They climbed up into the magic treehouse and looked out the window together. A fiery waterfall of green and yellow stars were bursting above the jagged skyline of Mexico City. With whistling and popping sounds, the fireworks were celebrating the game of a lifetime. "Goodbye, Mexico," said Jack. "Goodbye, Pele," said Annie. "Good luck, Roberto," said Jack. As the fireworks kept exploding, Jack pulled out his pencil and notebook, knelt down on the floor, and added the fourth secret of greatness to their list: enthusiasm. Good, said Annie. Let's take our list to Camelot now. She picked up the scroll lying on the floor and pointed at the word Camelot in Merlin's note. I wish we could go there, she whispered. A blast of light, a roar of wind, a rumble of thunder, and they were there. Chapter 10. Candles in the Forest. Golden light flooded the tea house. Jack and Annie looked out the window. It was early evening. The magic tea house had not landed in a tea. It had landed in a small clearing in a Camelot forest. All around, thousands of lanterns hung from oak trees. Their candle flames shone on knights in gleaming armor and ladies in cone-shaped hats with flowing veils. Jack couldn't speak. Even Annie was speechless. Morgan Le Fay stepped out from the crowd. The enchantress librarian was dressed in a long red velvet gown. Her white hair shimmered in the candlelight. Welcome back, Jack and Annie, said Morgan. Thank you, breathed Jack. I'm sorry we're so dirty, said Annie. We just played a tough game of soccer. You look wonderful to us, said Morgan, smiling. All of Camelot celebrates your return. 52 times you have traveled to faraway places in my magic tea house. 52 times you have proven your courage and kindness under the most difficult of circumstances. It is a magical number, the same number as there are weeks in a year. Carrying his staff, Merlin the magician stepped forward and stood beside Morgan. Jack and Annie, I heard stories of your adventures long before I met you, he said. I could not believe 2 children would venture into the lands of dinosaurs, castles, ancient Egypt, and pirates and return unharmed. You even outsmarted me when you saved Morgan from a spell I had playfully put her under. Morgan gave Merlin a look. Then she turned back to Jack and Annie. And we had fun, didn't we? She said. When we journeyed to the time of the ninjas, the rainforest, the ice age, and the moon? Yes, and Jack and I had fun when we solved your 4 riddles, Annie said breathlessly. On the coral reef, in the Wild West, on the Serengeti plain of Africa, and in the Arctic. And when we became master librarians, said Jack, and rescued the 4 ancient stories from Rome, China, Ireland, and Greece. And when you freed me from a spell, said a voice from the crowd. Woof, woof. Teddy, said Annie. The firelight shone on the young sorcerer's tousled red hair as he stepped forward. Remember when I was a dog? Teddy said, grinning. Jack and Annie laughed and nodded. And we escaped from the Titanic, said Teddy. And the buffalo stampede, the tiger in India, and the forest fire in the Australian outback? Yes, said Jack and Annie. And do not forget how you saved His Majesty from despair, said a woman in a snow-white gown. A veil hung from a wreath of blue flowers around her hair. Standing next to her was a man in a purple tunic and a red cape. On his head was a simple golden crown. Queen Guinevere, King Arthur, said Annie. You brought me wisdom and courage from the American Civil War, said King Arthur, and the Revolutionary War, a schoolhouse on the American prairie, and an earthquake in San Francisco. And then you discovered the secrets of everyday magic, said Morgan. From the people of the first Thanksgiving, the gorillas of the cloud forest, William Shakespeare, and friends in Hawaii. And you saved the 4 treasures of Camelot for Merlin, said King Arthur. Merlin laughed. Yes, you outwitted the dragons of the other world, the Raven King, the Sea Serpent, and the Ice Wizard, he said. And do not forget when Teddy and I journeyed with you to the 4 beautiful cities, said a young girl. Her dark hair curled down over her shoulders. Her sea-blue eyes shone in the firelight. Ancient Baghdad, Venice, Paris, and New York, she said. Jack nodded. Hi, Kathleen, he said shyly. And thank you, Jack and Danny, for saving another from a spell too, said Kathleen, on our mission in New York City. A white unicorn gracefully stepped forward and stood beside Kathleen. He lowered his head. Dianthus, said Annie. The wand of Dianthus helped you learn 4 secrets of happiness, said Merlin. From Leonardo da Vinci, Basho the poet, the deep sea, and best of all, from this little one you brought me from Antarctica. The magician picked up a baby penguin that had been hiding behind his cloak. Penny, said Jack, and 4 creative geniuses of history thank you too, said Morgan, for helping them begin the path to giving their gifts to the world. Mozart and Louis Armstrong, said Jack, remembering their friends, and Lady Gregory and Charles Dickens. And thank you for helping Teddy to undo the spell he accidentally cast on Penny, said Merlin. He confessed all to us later. We went to the Taj Mahal in India for that, said Annie, and met St. Bernard dogs in Switzerland and Abraham Lincoln and pandas in China, said Jack. And now you have returned from 4 more missions, said Merlin. And you were successful, I presume? Yes, said Annie. We learned secrets of greatness by spending time with Alexander the Great and his black stallion, and with the great Houdini and his wife Bess, Florence Nightingale. And finally, said Jack, from Pele the Great. He held out the notebook paper on which he had written the 4 secrets of greatness. Merlin took the paper from Jack and read in a deep, resonant voice. Humility, hard work, meaning and purpose, enthusiasm. The magician was silent for a moment. He seemed deep in thought. Then he looked back at Jack and Danny. Yes, he said, perfect. Thank you, Jack and Danny, for your greatness. Jack and Danny both smiled and shrugged. We're not that great, said Jack. We're just 2 regular kids, said Annie. Really lucky regular kids. On your journeys you have learned many things, said Morgan. You have seen many parts of the world and met many remarkable people. Jack, you have become kinder and more courageous. Annie, you have become more thoughtful. Your next missions may be even more challenging, said Merlin. Really? Breathed Jack. How do we prepare for that? Do not worry, said Morgan. We want you to do what others your age do. Learn new things in school. Have fun with your family and friends. Read books. Play games outside, said Teddy. Play music. Play with animals, added Kathleen. Jack and Danny smiled. Goodbye, Jack and Danny, said Merlin. For now, said Morgan. The candle flames danced wildly in the gentle breeze. In the golden light, bells rang through the air. Sweet music filled the forest with the sounds of flutes and horns. The wind began to blow. The tea house started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. The pale gold light of dawn shone through the window of the tea house. Jack and Danny were back in the woods of Frog Creek, and their clothes were clean. No time at all had passed in Frog Creek. Did all that just happen? Said Jack, dazed. All what? Said Annie. Thousands of candles in the woods, King Arthur and Queen Guinevere, Merlin, Morgan, Teddy, Kathleen, all that, said Jack. I think, said Annie. Amazing, said Jack. I wonder what our next mission will be. I hope we find out soon, said Annie. Yep, said Jack. Let's go home. He pulled on his backpack and started down the rope ladder. Annie followed him. They stepped onto the ground and started through the summer woods. Neither spoke as they walked under the trees, through patches of shadow and light. Finally, Jack broke the silence. I think I'll buy a soccer goal with my birthday money, he said, and set it up in the backyard. Good idea, said Annie. And let's email Jenny and Randy and Quinn and see if they want to practice with us. Yeah, and Will and Lolly and Griffin, said Jack. And I want to pick up some books at the library too. Check out some exciting ones with big adventures and interesting information. Cool, said Annie. Okay, so I guess this is what we'll do today, said Jack. Breakfast, bike to the library and the sports shop, home for lunch, practice soccer, eat dinner, and read before bed. Sounds like a good plan, said Annie. A perfect one, said Jack. And they quickened their steps as they left the Frog Creek woods and headed for home. Enthusiasm is everything. It must be taut and vibrating like a guitar string. Pele.